Hello, everyone, and welcome to Island Fever Live. And this is a very, 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 very special Island Fever Live because I have here with me a very special person. She is a Yale-trained psychiatrist.
Yes.
And she's going to tell us the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist. And she's also going to explore with us. This is Dr. Flavia DeSouza. She is going to talk with us a little bit about the anxiety we're all feeling in this election time, packed with a pandemic. I know some of us are struggling right now. And hopefully, Dr. Flavia will be able to give you a little bit of comfort, give us a little bit of tips on how to figure out or get through this very difficult time. And also, she will be joining us every 2 weeks on Island Fever Live and on Island Fever FM. She's going to be talking, taking your questions as well on her social media. So a whole lot of things to dig into today. But today is definitely to introduce her to you. She is going to be our resident psychiatrist. She'll answer all your questions. This is Dr. Flavia DeSouza. Dr. Flavia, welcome.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I just, as we were talking even before the show and the introduction, I realized health literacy is so important. And so that initial question that you ask, I'll address it up front. It's a very common question. What is a psychiatrist? And even the word psychiatrist is associated with stigma from the communities that we are from. So a psychiatrist is really a person who has medical training. So they've gone to medical school. They have training in all parts of the body, but they have specialized in the mind, and in the connection of the mind and the body. That's really what it is. So you might have somebody who is a cardiologist who has specialized in the heart, somebody who's an endocrinologist who has specialized in how certain hormones affect the body. And us as psychiatrists, we are really interested in how human minds work and what happens when things might go a little bit wrong with the mind. We are really here to support people and their families when they have mental health issues. Sometimes people call us the talking doctors, but we can do other things. We can listen to heart, we can listen to lungs, we can do other assessments. We've been trained in all of those things. So sometimes people
You've been generally trained as a
generally trained, yes, as a medical doctor going to medical school, and even in the psychiatry residency training program, which I did at Yale, you have to do certain core rotations in order to understand the body. Because the reality is that sometimes what might happen in the body affects what goes on in the mind. A person might have an autoimmune disorder and present with psychiatric symptoms. We as psychiatrists must be able to understand that and make that connection. And because we are talking doctors, not only do we listen and talk to the person and assess, but we can also prescribe when a person has a psychiatric disorder.
Wow.
So that is something that is important to understand. The next thing that I wanted to separate out, because we want to focus on anxiety here, is the difference between anxiety and an anxiety disorder, right? So I think the easiest example that comes to my mind is diabetes.
Yes.
In every illness, you have parameters that help us to decide if you have an illness that needs treatment or if it's something that you can watch and wait and see. We add the word disorder in psychiatry to say, okay, this is something that needs some kind of intervention. Maybe that intervention is psychotherapy, therapy. Maybe that intervention is medication.
Yes.
Intervention is placed in order to alleviate suffering that the person is experiencing and to get the person back to the kind of life that they want to live, whether it is having meaningful relationships, being in the workplace, interacting with friends, feeling safe and secure in this world, right?
Right.
Anxiety, I don't know if you wanted to ask a question there.
Yes, I did. So even before I jump into anxiety, mental health in general, how important is it to get help?
Crucial.
And you explain why through anxiety. But
I can explain why. Even without that, I mean, you can't. Without mental health, there is no health. That's a slogan that I have seen on billboards, in social media, online, and it is so true. What can you do without your mind?
Without control of your mind.
What can you do?
What can you do?
And I think a lot of people suffer needlessly because one, there is not the literacy to know that something is actually wrong and I can ask for assistance or help, or that it is okay to acknowledge that something is wrong and I can seek out assistance or help.
Yes.
And that the help will actually make a difference.
Make a difference in your life, in the way you live, in how you are, and how you relate to the people that you love. Because I've seen anxiety in people very close to me, people I work with, that I've seen it cripple their lives. So today, guys, we're talking about anxiety around the election and the pandemic. Our next show that we do, we're going to focus a little more on the effects of the pandemic on mental health and kind of how to deal with that. But what, Flavia, I kind of took you off track there for a second.
I actually appreciate your question because I want to go back to just to drill it down a little bit more.
Yes, of course.
Sometimes just because of the world that we live in, there might be an issue and we don't realize that we have an issue. So, for example, the thing that came to my mind is breast cancer. If you don't have your mammograms starting at age 40 on a regular basis, or if you don't do your breast examinations, you can miss a major issue that can wreak havoc later on in life. It is important for us to first develop an understanding of what is a problem versus what is not a problem, and to be able to identify it, have words to describe it, and then deal with it appropriately so that we don't have havoc being wreaked in our lives and in our families' lives.
Yes. I cannot tell you how important it is within our community too, to make sure that you get help. It's okay, and don't let anybody laugh at you because you're getting help. There's so many places you can go to know. You can even go on Talkspace and all these other ones if you're afraid to walk into somewhere. But find somebody to talk to. Black people, especially in the United States, we go through so much trauma on a daily basis through simple things, simple stressors like the anxiety we feel when a police officer pulls up behind us, right? Do we know if this is going to end with our lives, if with us being alive or not? We walk into a store, we already know and have the stress of knowing that they think we're going to steal something. Our complexion has been criminalized, and is seen as a threat, and we know that. And so sometimes, and I can speak for myself, sometimes before I get into my car to go on the road in America, I have to take a deep breath and sigh and go, okay, here we go. Because I know when I'm out there, I'm leading with my skin, and my skin is a problem, right? And I have to govern myself based on that. And coming from a country where that was not a problem for me, it really does give me a bit of pause. When I go to Canada, I don't feel that way at all. But in America, and it's so ingrained in the society that people go about their daily lives and they don't understand the little ways that eats away at you,
at your humanity,
which then leads to a lot of other things like not feeling good about yourself, and then the next thing you know, you're depressed, and that leads to something else. So I kind of feel like I'm going across the board right now, because I definitely want to talk about the dehumanization of Black bodies and how that kind of affects us. But I want us to all understand that anxiety is not a big getting treatment for your anxiety is not a big
no. So going back to it. So anxiety. So I want to separate out when I talked about the disorder, that simple phrase that we attach on to help us delineate what we need to treat versus what we don't need to treat. And we have parameters that we think about when we see patients.
Mm-hmm.
So anxiety, the word, is an emotion. So I'm separating it out from anxiety disorder. And it actually is something that is important to pay attention to. One of the regular examples that they give in a lot of our texts, whether it's psychology, psychiatry texts, and even online, people can do reading for themselves, is that it helps us to respond to risks or scary events in appropriate ways.
Yes.
Right? So they talk about it as being the fight, flight, or freeze response. So the freeze response might be like if you have a lizard and the lizard sees a predator coming, it freezes and it camouflages and blends in the background to protect its life.
Yes.
The same as if you have a deer that's being run down by a lion. The deer has to run in order to protect its life. That's the flight.
Yes.
And in other instances, there's a fight response. You have to fight for your life. So if you bring it over into us in our day-to-day lives, anxiety can actually have a productive response. If you are in war, you need to protect yourself, or bring it back down. If you are preparing for an examination, maybe a little bit of anxiety might encourage you to do some studying or prepare extra for the presentation that you might, the oral presentation that you might have in class.
Right. So that's the little nerves that we feel in our stomach.
Little nerves, and that is totally appropriate in certain instances.
Yes.
The issue is that when it becomes something that is interfering with your day-to-day life, when you cannot make any presentations at all because you might feel that people are going to be judging you harshly and you get sweaty and you just can't even get the words to your mouth. Or if you just some people experience what are called panic attacks, where they literally feel as though they're going to die.
Yes.
And they may not be able to go about their day-to-day life because they fear having a panic attack, and so
Yes.
that stops them from doing things. That's the extreme. That's the anxiety disorder.
Yes.
And believe it or not, anxiety disorders are one of the leading cause of mental illness in the United States of America.
Really?
Yes. Yes,
Wow.
and they can be treated. So if you have close to 20% of people who have probably diagnosable anxiety disorders, only 1/3 of that amount is getting treated. So very few people are getting treated, and people don't get treated for all kinds of reasons. Some of it is not the person's fault. Some of it is the lack of access. Maybe you can't find an appropriate provider, psychiatrist, family care doctor who might understand. Some of that is not being screened for. Your doctor might not ask you when you visit him or her about anxiety symptoms. Some of it is that you don't know to talk about it. You might go about your life and think, oh, this is just how life is, and it's not. That's not how life is. You don't have to suffer. So sometimes we don't actually even bring it into the session ourselves, or and I know a lot of, I can think about people that I've interacted with who don't even bring up things to their doctor because their doctor hasn't asked them. They think it's maybe not important.
I see.
So there are many reasons that it may not get treated. And then when we're two women who are talking here, women are more likely to experience anxiety disorders than men, and there are many different reasons for this. And so, one of the things I was telling you offline is that there are organizations now that have made it mandatory to screen for anxiety disorders in girls and in women.
Wow.
When they come into the clinic, because it is something that is being missed, and it is causing a human toll that's creating suffering in the person's life. But also there's a toll in the workplace. People are not able to perform at work. People are not able to give to their families. People are not able to give to themselves. So, and in this period of time, COVID, pandemic, in the United States, the election is exacerbating people's experience of anxiety, and then exacerbating anxiety symptoms in people who have anxiety disorders. Go ahead. Yes.
Question. Do you think that for people who wouldn't normally be having an issue with anxiety, do you think this whole polarization of this election, a lot of the fears that are being shared on social media and things like that, do you think that this can develop anxiety in a person who wouldn't normally be predisposed to that kind of a disorder?
Mm-hmm. You have hit the nail on the head. And the messaging, the polarization causes stress. And there's also a lot of fear mongering and fear messaging that is coming through and through.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of drilling back a little bit now, stress can literally push a person into having a psychiatric disorder.
Really?
Yes.
So if I'm stressed out, yes, and I feel like I can't manage, and I feel like I'm going to, that will push me.
It can push certain people over the edge. Yes.
Okay.
And there is a psychological theory actually called the Diaphysis stress model. And the whole idea of this theory is that in certain individuals might have genetic predispositions, whether it is that something may be run in the family or something happens in utero to the fetus that may predispose them to be more likely to developing a psychiatric disorder. But remember, we are persons who are moving through the world and interacting with the world.
Yes.
What does that mean? You might have your genotype, but not all of your genes, that's your genes in your body, are expressed in what is the physical thing that you see. And what is the physical thing that we see is not just appearance, but things like psychiatric disorders. You can have what we call a stress or cumulative stress that causes certain things that are in your genes that otherwise would not have been expressed to start getting expressed. And so that is, maybe people throw on the word stress and people say, well, you need to manage your stress, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing. And so you may have a vulnerability that gets uncovered during times of greater stress.
So, and that is why we're seeing the increase of anxiety disorders and people needing to be medicated. I'm sure even just the stress of having your children at home and having to homeschool them while working, while it's already stressful as a mother. And you mentioned that women are more predisposed to anxiety than men are. A lot of that does a lot of that have to do with just the added responsibility in the household?
Yes.
For a woman.
That's like one of the ideas, that you're carrying household responsibilities, and we're also moving into an era where more and more women are working as well.
Yeah.
But the household responsibilities are a lot. You know, the emotional weight and load of caring for children, it's very complicated in terms of feeling good enough, not feeling good enough, always being on, always taking care of another human being. So in addition to that, we're in a period
now. There's no time for self
right. There's more economic independence. Women have access to work. They can earn their own income. So some of those traditional roles still are being taken care of by the woman, even though she is.
In addition to the fact that she also works. So the men get to come home and put up their feet, and then the woman is still there having to cook, clean, wash, raise children, and go to work at the same time.
Well, some men are really great. And they understand and they're supportive. And
I think I just spoke to the men right now. The men are very happy that you said that. And you know that, no, I help. What are you talking
about? but I will say that, just talking to some mothers, women, I have to really think about this and explore it some more. But a lot of women have this extra kind of emotional capacity or empathy. And maybe can see things in their children that a lot of men may not naturally be able to see. I don't know how true this is, but this anecdotally, that's what I hear from
my mother says that all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, she does. All right, so we've explored. So let's say I find myself with feelings of anxiousness and helplessness because the government is such a big thing, and this election is such a big thing, and I already voted, but I'm feeling like I have no control, right? what would you say to someone who feels like they have, and this is not me per se, but I'm just speaking for any of our viewers, and to our viewers who just joined us, you can go ahead and send us a message or a comment or ask a question here in the chat to Dr. Flavia. We're talking about anxiety within the parameters of the election and us staying at home and all that. So I'm anxious. I feel like the country is slipping into crazy, right? And I feel like I can't do anything. I've already done what I can, which is to vote, but I'm still experiencing severe anxiety or feelings of hopelessness and helplessness. What would you say to somebody who is feeling that way right now?
Some of the tips are simple. And I'll share those. I appreciate your question because I think it gets to this idea of what can we control versus what can't we control.
Yeah.
And going back to what you say, people can control their ability to vote or not. As much as it's possible, that's one thing that you have within your control.
Right.
The other thing that I think was really important in your question is that sometimes the difficulties that we're experiencing is not because of, it's not our fault.
Right.
There are structural issues that are all around us that we seemingly have no control over. So the first things can pertain to the self. Personally, I watch my consumption of news. I watch my consumption, and some people can, they're like, for example, if you're in the media industry, you kind of have to know what is going on.
I have
on it all the time.
I have to watch every news network and know everything.
You have to be able to talk intelligently about it, But for me, I like limit, and in addition to that, I watch good news. So what are the good things that are happening in our world? What are the good things that are happening in my friends' lives? Like, I celebrate those things. I might watch one of the TikTok videos that I watched recently was of parents who chose to cuddle with their children, and the children who were in loving homes, it was really beautiful actually, responded back to the parents even though they were being distracted by their favorite TV show. That's something that is I call it a small intervention, but it really helps me to see that it is not all calamity and disaster, even though it feels like that.
Right.
Even though people have been persecuted for centuries now, really. The next thing that is critical is sleep. As much as you can, get on a regular sleep schedule, even if you need some aids for it. Because sleep and good sleep increases our emotional bandwidth. It's just easier to tolerate.
Flavia, I'm not sleeping.
So
I work so hard, I barely sleep.
You're not the only one. A lot of people are sleep deprived. And people will just go off on you when they don't sleep enough. That's why a lot of young moms also, besides the hormonal change, the sleep is an issue. You have your child balling down the place, you're not sleeping. Of course, you're going to be stressed. It's a natural response. And so that is a small thing. If you have control over how much hours of sleep you can get, and if you can get a regular amount of sleep the amount of sleep that you need, because it varies from person to person, but on average is 7 to 9. You try to get that.
People sleep for 9 hours.
Yeah, man. I have known people who would sleep
9 hours.
Five on average.
No, sad. Yeah, I get 5 max.
Some people don't need as much sleep.
I gotta work. No, I do so many things, So yes, okay. So Dr. Flavia say I must go to bed early and get my sleep. All right. And limit consumption of news. What do you also what are some of the
other things that I was going to say structurally now, because so these are personal things and those are two small things.
Right.
Put in good stuff into your mind and into your heart. Good stuff. Sometimes it's really hard to motivate yourself to do that if you are in a place that's not good. And take care of your physical self. Like I said in the beginning, remember, physical things can manifest as psychiatric symptoms. It is not uncommon. So the structural thing now is if you are so motivated and moved, get involved in do some kind of civic engagement. Voting is a form of civic engagement. Joining a group that is moving an issue that is important to you forward really helps to give people a sense of purpose, and then you can see incremental change over time. I think that's one way to feel as though things are not totally out of your control. And then the last thing is community. Community is so important.
So human interaction.
And that is something that is hard right now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So even talking on Zoom, calling up people that are important to you, whether it's friends or family, having special time with your family that is separate from work. Community is key.
Yes. Yes. Well, Dr. Flavia, that is, so we have them community. So get a community, find a community online or whatever, but be involved in something. Take care of your physical self. Get a lot of sleep. And
for those who can,
consumption of social media as well.
Yes.
Because I saw in a documentary the people who actually created the algorithms for Google and Facebook and Instagram and all these other social media platforms that we consume, they've come out and said that the AI that they built was to give us more of whatever we consume. So if you watched a video that was about conspiracy theories, the algorithm is going to keep.
You're going to see more and more of that in your feed. And we all experience that. All of us who are on YouTube experience that.
Yes. So limiting social media time as well, and being more actually social, as in Zoom calls and things like that with each other. Talking to your people on the phone, reaching out to family members who may be feeling isolated. That's another thing, especially your young family members that live alone. They're constantly on social media, and I just feel like reaching out to them, even when you think they're fine, can be so helpful as well.
Actually, to that point, because you mentioned young people, they did a study and they published the results recently in UK where they were looking at the change in psychiatric disorders over the course of the pandemic. And what they found is that the crisis that we're in, the mental health crisis that we're in, is not affecting all people equally. So young people who are, let's say, 18 to 25, who are in the prime of their socializing years, where they want to spend time with friends, where they maybe were supposed to be in college interacting, pulled away, are struggling more. Black and Indigenous people of color are also struggling more during this time. It is not all equal. And so if you know that you are somebody that's important to you, or a part of these groups, try to support them.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, Dr. Flavia, it has been wonderful talking with you today about anxiety. Thank you for the tips. At this time, a lot of us are experiencing fears. We don't know what's going to happen after the election because we are so passionate.
Right.
Some of us are in fear of violence. Some of us are in fear of any kinds of retaliation, no matter who wins. And there's a lot of doom and gloom going around. So it's really refreshing to have someone all this and remind us that there is beauty in the world. Everything's not about politics. Is there, and reminding us also in this time of social distancing to reach out to our family members and friends. Thanks so much.
The one thing I wanted to add is just what you said. We don't know what's going to happen with the election. That's one of the reasons people are nervous, anxious. Remember, anxiety is a response to maybe perceived danger or risk or something like that. And so there are individuals who are planning to meet after the election and to discuss and to air out their feelings. So that's an option to you. If you have a group or a community that is willing to do that, I would encourage it. I'm a part of a listserv, and I just got a notification saying that there's going to be a town hall on Wednesday. Just here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just to air it all out.
Just to air it out, yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, what really matters is your home. It's your family. It's the people close to you, it's your friends, right? None of this. I mean, yes, politics does matter, but in the grand scheme of things, we have to take care of ourselves. And I want to thank you for coming on and just teaching us how to do that today.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Dr. Flavia. I'm gonna have you back, right?
Yes.
Where can we find you? On Instagram, on Twitter. What do
you want me to do? You want me to type it in, or you want me to say what it is?
Just say it. I'll type it.
Mind Health Matter on Instagram. MindHealthMatter. And that's Flavia DeSouza MD.
ER, okay. And that's on IG.
And on Twitter is at Dr. Flavia DeSouza. I'm gonna just confirm it here.
Dr. Flavia DeSouza. SOUZA on Twitter. All right. See, there we have it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So much, and we'll see you in another couple of weeks, guys. We're gonna post the topic so you guys can you have 2 weeks to come up with your questions. I will get them to Dr. DeSouza, and we will talk more with her in 2 weeks right here on Island Fever Live. Thank you so much, Dr.
All right. Thank you.